Hey, friends. I had some conversations today which reminded me in some explicit ways and some implicit ways that all human interaction is an ongoing conversation, and it's all gray area. All we can really do is choose our own state of being to be in and from which to engage. It came up in some ways that were I would say more on the professional side, more in the kind of among professional colleagues of mine, where we initially thought we were facing kind of a bad situation, and it turned out to be almost a smokescreen, like a mirage. Like my friend Kyle Cease often references this ride at Disney World where you're on this train or this cart and it's going towards what looks like a wall crawling with rats. It just looks like a wall covered in rats. And as you get to it, you just go through it and you realize that these rats are just projected onto like a mist or a film that you can travel through, and you could spend your entire life being afraid of the rats and never going through the wall, and only by doing it, only by going through that, do you discover that there's nothing there. Only by going through the thing you're afraid of do you discover that there was never anything there. And that is one of my favorite images for all things we're afraid of in life. And this proved to be no exception. There was a kind of real ugliness to what we thought might be going on, and turned out to be nothing. And I'm sort of deliberately not being specific about this, both because in this particular case I don't really want to share the specifics, but also because it's not about the specifics. This way of knowing, and this I'd call it a principle of conscious living, is applicable to all circumstances. And I had ended up having, so then towards just now, at the end of my day when I was putting my daughter to sleep, we always have these, we have these minutes. They're not minutes, they're vast expanses of time that we spend doing certain things at bedtime, and it's kind of part of our routine. The routine's pretty consistent. The amount of time, the duration of these minutes is quite flexible. But during what we call talking minute, which is the first of 2 minutes in which we talk about things, whatever comes up, before we then turn off the lights and go into the other minutes that precede the actual sleeping. in this talking minute, we had decided to, she wanted to talk about water crystals. She said, let's talk about water crystals. I said, okay. And I'm kind of getting like a Frozen vibe from it. And then I thought, there's a very clever device in Frozen, the Disney movies, both of them, where Olaf, the magic talking snowman, talks about how water has memory. And it feels like it is drawing quite directly, like almost one for one, on the work of Dr. Emoto, who of course actually sort of documented this in a variety of experiments. Water has memory. Water thoughts have an effect on water. Thoughts can change the crystal structure of water, and then that water can retain that crystal structure even after the thoughts and the thinker have left the vicinity. The water has memory. It encodes those thoughts. So I was starting to share some of this and talking about how thoughts, our thoughts have an effect on things, and our thoughts have an effect on people as a sort of by extension / extrapolation of this principle. Our thoughts have an effect on other people. And then this got us very quickly. There was talk about a friend who thought something about her, who was therefore causing her to feel a certain way. And I picked up, or I took I saw a moment to say, well, do you control your friend's thoughts? No. Do you control this other friend's thoughts? No. What about this other friend? No. Well, what about Grandu? No. What about, right, on and on and on. What about Mama? What about, and a little bit, and at some point she kind of got the picture. She was like, okay, I don't control anybody's thoughts. And I said, well, there's one person whose thoughts you do control. She couldn't think of it. And when I told her, the one person whose thoughts you do control is you, she was very underwhelmed by my answer. She's like, that feels like a crappy answer. I wanted there to be one person in the world whose thoughts I control. She's disappointed and underwhelmed with the revelation that I was trying to offer. But that conversation then continued into, actually kind of like looking at what it means to control our own thoughts. And I pointed out, a lot of people don't control their own thoughts. A lot of people's thoughts are controlled by other people. Like, what does it feel like when something happens, somebody does something, and you feel a certain way? What do you say? You say, they made me feel this. They made me feel this. That's like saying, my feelings are enslaved to them. I don't have control of my own feelings. They have control of my feelings, and they used them to make me feel this. Which, when you spell it out like I'm doing and talking vaguely like a speak and spell from the 80s, inexplicably, when you say it that way, it sounds insane. But that's how we often think about our emotions. We think that people or circumstances made us feel something. And that's not true. We have to choose to empower those circumstances or those people to be able to produce feelings within us. It's a choice. We choose to give the power of producing feelings within us to things and or people outside of ourselves. It's like taking our inner life and enslaving it to some outer master. No one would do this if you ask them, you think this is a good idea? Like if you gave somebody like a contract to sign that said, here, sign this contract, it's going to mean that all of what you feel inside of you is handed over, responsibility is handed over to someone else. You will not be able to control it. Sign right here. It's a great deal. What? Nobody would sign that contract. Nobody who was listening and actually read it would think that that's a good idea. And yet, most of us do that. Most of us actually have signed that contract. This was a rocky one on the 5-year-old. She was not at all convinced that her friends had not made her feel something. But I could tell it was getting in there because she was kind of not so much arguing with me as sort of testing what she was receiving. And I tried to frame it in like nice. And then I tried to frame my thesis in sort of like what's the word, like palatable 5-year-old terminology, when I said, if you can actually control your own thoughts and your own feelings, you'll have a real superpower. That's like having an actual, real, live superpower. Because now, nobody can make you feel anything. You decide what to feel. You decide what to feel. You can choose to respond to circumstances. You can choose exactly how you're going to respond. You can choose to not respond. But you have an autonomous inner life, interior life. And I think she got it. I don't think she got it like for good and we'll never have to have this conversation again, but I think there was something about it that struck a chord in her, and calling it a superpower worked. That was good. Like she was like, okay. And then we talked about how, she said, but I've tried to do that and I can't control my thoughts. She does have the power to make me feel something. And I said, well, it takes practice. It's not going to happen overnight. It takes like anything. It's like violin. It's like anything. Practice. Got to do it. You got to make mistakes at it. You got to do it and not be able to do it. You got to try and fail again and again and again, but you will get better at it. You will begin to take control of your inner life. And so, full circle to where I started. This was the theme of the day. The theme of the day was, we can't control the outer circumstances. All we can really control is the inner state of being that we're coming from and from which we are engaging. Our position, our stance towards whatever happens to blow through the frame of our awareness. And it was really fun to have a lesson like this emerge in a way that I felt that I felt my 5-year-old could receive and sort of like ask for, in a roundabout way. We got there via water crystals and the Frozen movie and Dr. Emoto, and ultimately landed on control of our inner life. It was a nice journey. So that's what I got today, folks. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you soon.